Committee will come to order. Members, the Chair wishes to thank the members of the public who are here today and those who have signed up to speak to us. Chair also wants to thank our Sergeant-at-Arms for the wonderful work that they do. We've got Sergeant-at-Arms both here in person today and at our sites across the state. So I'll remind the members of the rules for public comment. Each member of the public who has signed up and on the list will have up to 2 minutes to speak. And so with that being said, we'll get right into the list. The first person we have signed up is Claire Stone. Claire Stone. Ms. Stone, if you will approach the dais and speak for a period of up to 2 minutes. Hold on one second, man. If we will, let's make sure the microphone is on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Thanks for having the hearings after some of the draft maps have been completed, and please make sure all of the input on the portals is made public. North Carolina gained a congressional seat because the state's population grew, of course, 9.5%. Brennan Center points out that people of color amounted to about 90% of that growth, and half of all that growth was from Mecklenburg and Wake counties. In spite of this, the proposed maps that have been posted by the chairs did not create any new majority black or Latino districts. In fact, CMT 9 draws both black incumbents out of districts where black voters cannot elect their candidates of choice. This would end up with North Carolina sending the entire delegation to Congress with no black representation. None of the congressional maps that have been posted by the chairs adequately preserve what voters of color have fought for decades to achieve. You've made the claim that the federal court in Covington case found that there was no racially polarized voting in North Carolina. That's not true. The court clearly said that there is racially polarized voting in North Carolina. As a matter of fact, in the last 5 years, it's getting worse, so North Carolina has to track the racial data. In the proposed Senate map SST4, 2 of the 3 black senators in Northeast North Carolina would lose their seats, a radical reduction in black representation. In Southeast North Carolina, the same Senate map draws a black incumbent into a district where black voters cannot re-elect him. In the triad, 2 state senators have been paired or double bunked, and voters of color have been packed together in High Point and Greensboro. In Mecklenburg, 2 out of 3 black preferred candidates are paired, and the county has been pulverized. This exposes intentional partisan and racial gerrymandering, despite your claim that you did not use this data. These proposed maps explicitly try to weaken voters' power based on race. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. And for those folks with us today, we respectfully ask for no applause. We want to be able to listen to folks here today, and so please hold your applause. Emily Keel from the Martin County NAACP. Emily Keel.
Okay.
And I think
I'm
she's
Emily
at
Keel.
ECU. Ms. Keel, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. NAACP, as you said. I'm referring also to map CMT 9. It dramatically changes U.S. District 1, where I reside, by extending the population and low-income counties with higher minority voters will likely be dominated by the coastal white population of higher income. Those of us living inland and farming communities have very little in common with coastal towns, which are focused on tourism, marine pursuits, and even traffic, which is not an issue in many of our precincts. This inclusion of coastal counties suggests a direct attempt to dilute the vote in what has been a minority opportunity district. You're not in compliance with the VRA without looking at racial data. Once again, it appears you're looking at the racial demographic that is obvious to all of us in an attempt to dilute US 1. We are more fairly represented in CBK 4. Regarding the VRA, your process of mapping has flagrantly disregarded the lawsuits of the past decade brought on by this very packing of minority voters into districts to dilute their vote. You're on target to repeat this and being really disingenuous about it. Map drawing must be, by law, include analysis of racial voting data in order to determine what creation of districts is appropriate for VRA compliance. We see what you are doing. It is a replay of the past decade during which you freely spent North Carolina taxpayer money on unnecessary lawsuits that you knew you would lose in order to have that period of time and an unstoppable majority to enact laws that could not be overturned except by the governor's veto. If your party does not have policies that people will vote for, your first thoughts seem to be to dilute the voting power of opponents, not to allow fair voting in which the citizens pick the person who represents them and who will fight for their values and needs. Thank you for the post-mapping hearings. I appreciate that, but it was rather quick, short notice and minimal time to review and consider the maps. Small limits in the number of speakers. It certainly was not done in the spirit of transparency and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan McClanahan. Susan McClanahan. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
I am Susan B. McClanahan from Orange County. Just as you are targeting Butterfield and Adams in the congressional drafts, you are using the Senate and House drafts to gerrymander 2 of our Democratic leaders in the General Assembly. They are Senator Valerie Foushee of Orange-Durham District 23 and Representative Robert Reeves of Chatham-Durham District 54. Both of these capable, hardworking legislators are minority leaders in the NCGA. They also happen to be Black. Valerie Foushee is the Senate Democratic Caucus Chair who has been reelected 3 times by Orange Chatham voters. Robert Reeves is the House Democratic leader who has been reelected 3 times by Chatham-Durham voters. In SST4, Senator Foushee's new district would have her serving Orange Person Caswell rather than Orange Chatham, with the hope that those new rural voters will not elect her. Orange and Chatham have been in a long-term working relationship, and as our District 15B judges said in more eloquent words in 2017, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You are clearly diluting the voices of urban voters. Keep Orange and Chatham together. HBK 11 changes Reeves House District 54 by replacing Southwest Durham with strong GOP precincts in Randolph County that have nothing in common with the fast-growing suburban precincts around Pittsburgh. Once again, you are changing a district that has reelected Reeves multiple times with the hope that he will not be elected. This is unadulterated gerrymandering at its worst. Please respect the voters. Please keep Chatham whole while pairing it with Southwest Durham, and respect the voters who have put Foushee and Reeves into office. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cheryl Tung from the League of Women Voters, Wake County, North Carolina. Ms. Tung, if you will approach the microphone, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Tung, and I serve as president of the League of Women Voters of Wake County. Our nonpartisan organization has advocated for fair redistricting for decades. We've asked for a process that is authentically transparent and one that produces competitive maps that allow voters to choose their candidates. The process that we've witnessed this round has achieved neither. What has been provided is similar to the game of Clue. From trying to figure out which computer monitor is producing what map, to who is sitting at the terminals and what is being said, to determining in which rooms the maps may have originally been drawn, much of this process remains a mystery. We don't even know if the maps that will be used have actually 33% unaffiliated, 36% Democrat, and 30% Republican. Which group is rising the fastest? Unaffiliated voters. We are a purple state, and that is a fact. These maps are not reflective of the voters in our state. They do not allow for competitive elections. The results have been predetermined. In addition, you've also allowed for incumbency protection, but you've applied it in a discriminatory manner. While the League does not support incumbency protection, we are especially concerned when we see it applied in a racially unfair manner. Lastly, we are a participatory democracy. We want to know what others are saying. However, you have not made public the public comments in the portal available. In addition, we want to know what you all have to say. There's been no justifications for any of the maps that have been produced, and if the maps we've seen so far contain the actual maps that will be used. This is not democracy at work. We ask for better maps and a better process for the citizens of North Carolina. Thank you.
Mary Jo Espinoza from NC Counts. She's at Central Piedmont.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Jose Espinoza. I've lived in Charlotte for most of my life. I'm here today on behalf of NC Counts, a nonpartisan organization that has worked on census outreach and efforts across the state. I had coffee this morning, so I'm a little twitchy. We are here because we believe that all North Carolina residents should have an opportunity to engage directly with the map drawing processes. As mentioned previously, this will be the last of several hearings and the opportunity for residents to talk about their maps. All of our residents will be impacted by new maps for many years to come, and we must make sure that their voices are taken into consideration during the process. In addition, our district maps must be drawn to provide equal representation and should accurately and appropriately reflect the political makeup of our home state. Drawing fair maps will allow our communities to be represented by leaders who know their communities and will advocate for resources we need to support our residents and communities. Our maps must be drawn to ensure that we meet our community's needs, not to meet politicians' need for power. Redistricting will impact many aspects of our communities, including our education, healthcare, voting rights, political representation, and the rights of those that are currently incarcerated. We must advocate for a fair and good map drawing process to ensure that we have good and fair results. Thank you.
Thank you. Lamisha Whittington with Advance Carolina. Lamisha Whittington with Advance Carolina. John Lingle at Central Piedmont Community College. John Lingle.
Yep, I'm here. Okay. Hello, I'm John Lingle. I moved to Davidson, North Carolina 21 years ago, drawn by good public schools and a balance of conservative and liberal voices. I was a raised Republican. I despair, however, watching today's GOP systematically undercut participatory democracy in North Carolina. This redistricting process is a frightening example. First, there are the compressed timelines, inconvenient meeting times, and locations, plus the limiting of public testimony to fewer than 200 for only 2 minutes in a state of 10.5 million people. Second, the most common request in past hearings to protect communities of interest and avoid extreme partisan gerrymandering have been blatantly ignored. These are chilling examples of autocratic practices generally seen in other countries. Not surprising, the flawed process has produced horrific maps rated F by multiple independent rating groups. The GOP draft maps would drastically overrepresent Republicans in a 50-50 state. Maps dilute the voices of urban areas, and Democrats across the state, including my own town of Davidson, would be unable to have a Democratic representative for a decade. Conclusion, I request, one, that you allow us more time to study the maps so we can comment intelligently. Two, meaningfully respond to the feedback you are and have received. Three, adopt maps like CBK4 or SCH2 that are more compact, do not inappropriately split counties, precincts, or municipalities, or double bunk incumbents. Their flawed maps will cost us millions in tax dollars and litigation once again, but you will probably lose again. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Schotter from Craven Get Out the Vote Coalition. He's at East Carolina.
Shatter.
Michael Shatter, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
I'm Michael Schachter from Craven Get Out the Vote Coalition. Thank you for holding this public hearing. We need more of them in other locations. I plan to make a general comment and then a comment on a specific map. We all know our state as shown by the last election, is almost evenly split between the two major parties. If the final maps extremely favor one party over the other, then it is clear that there has been a political gerrymander and with it a racial gerrymander of the voting districts. This will mean that the essence of one person, one vote has been violated, and voters have no way of choosing candidates that they want to represent. This would be wrong and a violation of the principles of democracy. On a brighter side, I will comment on a map drawn for House District HBK 11. I am glad to see that District 6 in this map contains most of Craven County and is not attached to any other county. This means that my community, Tuscarora Rims community, and nearby Rocky Run Road community is within the same district and not split into two as was done in the last redistricting. I ask that you keep the map that way. 30 seconds, okay. It would be great if the entire Craven County would be in one district and include all of Havelock and Harlow, but I know the population number would be too large for the district. A possibility is to keep some of those areas in District 6 and move Fairfield Harbor, which is isolated area near Pamlico County, into District 3. Thank you again for this public hearing. Thank you.
Stephen Kendrick. Mr. Kendrick, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Kendrick. I live in Apex and in Wake County, and I am a private citizen taking time off work to share my concerns with you here today. I'm concerned about the potential for an undemocratic gerrymander and the disempowerment of citizens to impact their representative government. In 2019, our courts ruled that the North Carolina Constitution provides for free elections. To me, a free election is where the will of the people can be heard and reflected in election results. An unfree election is when political design all but assures many voices will be severely underrepresented. In 2020, there was a near 50-50 split in statewide votes going to Democratic and Republican candidates. But as yesterday's News and Observer front page showed, most of the newly proposed maps would result in 70 to 80% of North Carolina's U.S. House seats going to Republicans. The Republican-drawn maps do not allow for free elections, and they signal unconstitutional, hyperpartisan gerrymandering. Under map CST2, I would drive through a virtual corkscrew of alternating district lines to get to my in-laws' house, also in Apex. Under CBK3, my subdivision is surrounded by different congressional districts on 3 sides. I could understand if these twisted lines dividing my town made a fair congressional map possible, one that reflected the state's even split. But that is not the case with many of these proposed maps. Please use your district drawing powers to give everyone in this state a fair shot at having their vote matter. Vote for free elections and support maps CBK4 or CBK5. Thank you for your time.
Vicki Atkinson. Ms. Atkinson, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
My name is Vicki Atkinson. I live in Chatham County. My remarks address map HBK 11. I support keeping Chatham County whole, and I'm glad to see that in this map, the county is kept whole. Chatham is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, and certainly in North Carolina. It is almost large enough already to be a district in itself. With the addition of 2 smaller precincts, Liberty and Staley from Randolph County, Chatham is within the ideal district size. There is no reason to add Providence precinct to Chatham for population. Providence does not share a border with Chatham. If Providence is added, the district will come close to being 5% over the ideal size already. The district will very quickly be too large. This will disproportionately dilute the strength of voters of color in Chatham County. New housing developments are popping up along 15501 in northern Chatham and in Pittsburgh. The Chatham Park development alone is adding tremendous population growth to the county every year. Chatham is rapidly urbanizing. It has nothing in common with Providence, which is rural and remote from Chatham. The only reason that I can see as to why Providence is included in this map is partisan manipulation. That is not fair. Chatham leans Democratic. It is not fair to pull in a precinct just to tilt the scales for partisan advantage. It's not contiguous with Chatham. We don't need it for population size. Combine Providence with one of the Randolph County districts, both of which are on the low side of ideal. Thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. John Lowe. Mr. Lowe, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Howdy. My name is John Lowe. I'm a resident of Chatham County, and I will make many of the same comments that the previous speaker made, because my remarks address map HBK 11 and House District 56. I strongly support keeping Chatham County entirely in one House district. We're fast growing, as you've heard, and we're projected to rise another 20% in population over the next 10 years. Adding a few precincts from Randolph County to put our district closer to the legislature's ideal size seems appropriate. However, this map does so in ways that are unfair to both counties. First, Randolph's Provident precinct doesn't even touch Chatham County. This would add a far distant neighbors to Chatham and would deprive Provident folks, 7,000 of them, from their historic and geographical ties. Second, the 3 added Randolph precincts collectively put fast-growing Chatham and House District 56 at nearly 5% over the ideal size already. With projected growth, we'll be above the ideal size for the next 10 years. This is certainly not ideal and dilutes the strength of Chatham County voters. In fact, there are only 2 proposed House districts in the entire state that are closer to the 5% limit than House District 56. Third, Randolph County House Districts 60 and 61, which are adjacent to Providence precinct, are under the ideal size by 4.5% and 2.6% respectively. What? Providence precinct is not worthy of being in one of the Randolph County districts? Finally, it's not unnoticed by Chathamites that this map cynically disadvantages Chatham County incumbent and House Minority Leader Robert Reeves. Enough with the blatant partisanship already. Thank you.
Miko McCarthy, Central Piedmont Community College, WZA consultant. Mr. Miko McCarthy at Central Piedmont Community College. Carol Gottman, Fearington Dems. Ma'am, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Okay, I am Carol Gottman, and I live in one of the many retirement communities in Chatham County. I have seen 87 years, and in many of my adult years, I have joined with other citizens, both citizens from both parties, to ask for a bipartisan commission to develop voting districts. We are sick and tired of partisan haggling, and that's all you are offering. You don't play fair, and we're tired of it. How can you justify in a state in which we are politically divided to offer congressional districts which you anticipate to result in an 11-4 split. It's not just the youth who are losing faith in the system. The old are also. I don't know how much of my diminishing time and energy I have left, but I want to use it to save democracy. And that starts right here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sherry Pickett from Take Back Our Schools, GCS. Sherry Pickett. Christy Clark from the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party at Central Piedmont Community College.
Good afternoon. My name is Christy Clark. I live in Huntersville, and I am the Huntersville Regional Vice Chair for the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party and a former state legislator. North Carolina's congressional and General Assembly delegations have not been representative of our people for the past 10 years. In 2010, North Carolina was represented in Congress by 7 Democrats and 6 Republicans. By 2012, new Republican maps produced 4 Democrats and 9 Republicans in Congress. Today, the Republican-led General Assembly has again used surgical precision to gerrymander a congressional map for 11 Republicans and 3 Democrats in a 50-50 state. Precincts, municipalities, and counties should not be split to benefit one party or the other, or even one candidate or the other. Rural communities that are seemingly already forgotten should not be grouped with suburban and urban areas, not even for the Speaker of the House who has plans for higher office. By my count, some voters in Precinct 134 in Huntersville will have been in a different state house district for the past 3 election cycles and will be again in 2022. This is unfair to those voters. Renumbering state legislative districts is deceiving to voters. By design, renumbering causes confusion and discourages voting. This should be fixed in the final draft of the bill. Transparency and fairness were falsely implied at the onset of redistricting. Voters are not fooled. Maps were printed and taken to back rooms for review. Oddly shaped districts, dissected counties, severed towns, and split precincts show voters the same old gerrymandering practices are being used. 65% of North Carolinians say ending gerrymandering is a priority for them. As our beautiful state continues to grow, the General Assembly must draw maps that reflect the diversity and strength of our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Madeleine Parra at Central Piedmont Community College.
Good afternoon. My name is Madeleine Parra. I'm born and raised in North Carolina, graduated from Davidson College, and now live in Cornelius, where I'm chair of my precinct. My dad is an immigrant from Bogota, Colombia. Him and my mom moved to North Carolina back in the early 80s with the dream of starting a career and starting a family. And even as outsiders, they were welcomed with open arms, regardless of political party. I am here today to urge this committee to make the redistricting process more inclusive and fair, which is core to the North Carolina values I know that we all stand for. This means all North Carolinians need a reasonable opportunity to participate. To do that, we need a series of bilingual hearings to be inclusive of our Hispanic community, which grew by over 28% in North Carolina since the last census, well outpacing the national average. Without this, I don't see how this can be inclusive or fair. We are potentially excluding the voices of over 1 million North Carolinians and whether or not they feel fairly represented. For example, I don't see a bilingual translator here today, nor have I been able to find any information pushed out by the General Assembly about this important process translated into Spanish. It is not too late to hold more meetings in both English and Spanish. If my parents' church can do that, the General Assembly can too. In conclusion, I am here today to ask the committee to make this process more inclusive, so as not to exclude our valued Hispanic community from the fair representation that they deserve. Thank you.
Angeline Echeverria. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
My name is Angelina Echeverria. I comment today on behalf of NC Counts Coalition, a nonpartisan organization that builds a healthy, just, and equitable North Carolina through cross-sector partnerships that advance systemic solutions for communities. Our organization supported a complete and accurate 2020 census count, and we continue to promote civic participation with partners across the state. Normally, Executive Director Stacy Carlis or Director of Civic Engagement Kyle Brazil would give official comments on behalf of our organization, but they could not be here due to the extremely short notice for these hearings. We have spoken with dozens of coalition partners who have found this process confusing and designed to discourage rather than to encourage meaningful participation. The maps that are being debated are buried on the website with no information provided in languages other than English and no online tools to help users navigate them to see their current and proposed districts. No relevant context is provided to describe how these maps relate to the stated criteria. We previously submitted comments expressing our concern about the exclusion of racial data, and this concern has proven to be well-founded in our initial review of the maps. We have heard from partners who are concerned that Black communities' voting power will be diluted and their local Black incumbents will be disadvantaged. From partners in urban and suburban counties with large communities of color who are concerned about how their counties will be divided to prevent communities from electing candidates of their choice. From partners in the Northeast who are concerned about how their counties are being clustered to disadvantage Black voters, and from partners in counties such as Nash and Edgecombe that have requested that those counties be clustered together and are not seeing their will reflected. We respectfully request that you review the maps with a racial equity lens and modify them to protect the rights of Black voters and other voters of color. Thank you.
Barbara Prophet, Mecklenburg County, Matthews Precinct 218 at Central Piedmont Community College. Ms. Prophet, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is, let me take my mask off, sorry. My name is Barbara Prophet, and I live in Matthews, and I'm a longtime precinct chair. I have 2 requests for changes to the U.S. Congressional Districts map. I'm currently in CD 12. My first request is for equitable representation for Matthews. The new maps show us either in CD 8 or CD 9. Maps CST 2 and CBK 3 chop a strip, including Matthews, out of Mecklenburg County and adds us into Congressional District 8. Map CMT 9 puts Matthews and a large portion of Mecklenburg into Congressional District 9. Both districts will almost certainly be Republican. Matthews, which is more and more Democratic, will never have a chance for a Democratic representative for any of its 6 precincts. Although Matthews currently has more registered Republicans, Democrats have more unaffiliated. Significantly more left-leaning unaffiliated voted in the 2020 primary, 1,664, than right-leaning Republicans, 487. Lumping us into CD 8 or CD 9 will mean that we will have hundreds of wasted votes in primaries. A Democratic candidate will not have a chance to get elected. My second request, the new 14th Congressional District has been added to Cleveland County. It should be added to an area which is underrepresented by non-white voters. Even in Mecklenburg, we have a significant number of non-white voters, and we have more than 10 times the number of registered voters. It's important to note that the number of Cleveland voters is decreasing. In conclusion, there is a more equitable location to put the new 14th district, one where the population is increasing and has an underrepresented population. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Ray Dawson. You recognize for up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Ray Dawson. I'm here representing myself and neighbors on call. I live in Durham County, and my comments today are regarding this hearing process. First, I can't overemphasize how difficult this process was for a regular citizen like me. Giving us such short notice to comprehend such a complex set of maps seems designed to discourage participation, not encourage it. Second, it seems illogical for a state that is divided nearly 50-50 by political party to have maps drawn that so heavily favor the Republican Party. Y'all must have had a bug in your software. Map CMT-9, for example, divides voters such that outcome is skewed 5-2 in favor of GOP voters. It also defines only one minority-majority district, representing 11% of the total, for a state in which minority voters represent 36% of the population. Once again, illogical. While I realize that maps cannot and should not be drawn based upon race alone, creating maps that deliberately dilute the votes of any class of voter is inappropriate. These maps, as currently drawn, are clear examples of minority, not majority rule. You can't win fairly, so you have to cheat. Contrary to a fair and democratic small d process.
Stephanie Powell. Stephanie Powell. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Powell. I live in Chatham County. I will address North Carolina map HBK 11, which creates House District 56. District 56's map comprises all of Chatham County, which is a good thing, plus 3 precincts in Randolph County, Providence, Liberty, and Staley. The inclusion of largely Republican Providence is unnecessary and is intended to dilute the Democratic votes of Chatham County voters. The evidence is as follows. Providence is not contiguous to Chatham County and is geographically distant. The addition of this remote rural area to the increasingly urban and suburban population of Chatham County blatantly defeats the goal of a community of interests among voters in a district. In fact, Providence is contiguous with and has common interests with House Districts 60 and 61 in Randolph County, both of which are also largely agricultural. As such, Providence should be removed from 56 and added to District 60 or 61. In addition, due to the inclusion of Providence, House District 56 is dangerously close to 5% over the ideal size. Chatham County's population is expected to increase dramatically as projected by the state. Given the many current and future development projects already in the pipeline, District 56 will very quickly and soon exceed the 5%. Conversely, House District 60 is under the ideal size by 4.5%, and House District 61 is under by 2.6%. Both of these districts could use Providence. It does not make sense for District 56 to include Providence. Considering its remote location, lack of community of interest with Chatham County, and unnecessary additional population, the inclusion can only be explained as a partisan attempt to add Republican votes to District 56 and dilute the Democratic vote. I request that you remove the Providence precinct from House District 56 and include it in House District 60 or 61 instead. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurel Volker. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Laurel Velker. I live in Wake County, and while today's hearing is ostensibly an opportunity to provide comments on your proposed House and Senate maps, you have not given us enough notice and information to meaningfully analyze those maps. The maps have been available for less than 5 days, and we're still being drawn this morning. The maps we see now may not even be the maps you're actually considering. Using a tight timeline as an excuse to limit our participation is one of the oldest tricks in the book, and you are creating a false sense of urgency surrounding this process. There is no compelling reason to hold the 2022 primary in March. The associated December filing deadline places unnecessary limits on public participation. Prior to 2020, North Carolina had a May primary with a February filing deadline. If you actually value transparency, it is well within your power to give us more time to participate in this process. And while you may say this process has been transparent, we know that it has been a sham. It was impossible to understand what was actually happening in the room when the maps were being drawn. We are unable to see the comments made on the portal by our fellow citizens, and we have not been provided with any justification or explanation for why the maps you presented are good for North Carolina. North Carolinians are more aware than ever of the harms caused by unfair maps. We have access to tools and data. We know it's possible for you to draw maps that give us a real chance to choose our representatives. We are tired of voting maps that place the desires of politicians above democracy. You can do better, and I urge you to do so. Thank you.
Sharon Johnson with CCDP. Sharon Johnson, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I'm Sharon Johnson. I reside in Cumberland County, and I serve as the chair of Cumberland County Democratic Party. At the public hearing that was held at FTCC in Fayetteville, I stood and asked the committee members to extend some equity to the Sand Hills area of North Carolina and give us a congressional district. I reminded you that we were the only geographical area in North Carolina without a congressional district. I reminded, and it's not right. At the Fayetteville hearing, we heard from Republicans and Democrats calling for this congressional district. I shared with the members there the similarities and the commonalities of the counties of Cumberland, Robeson, Hoke, Moore, Scotland, and Richmond County that make up the Sand Hills, and their important nexus to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Yet, from the 8 published congressional maps that I found and reviewed, only 4 of those maps, CBK 4, CBK 5, CST 6, CST 8, reflects the will of the voters in Sand Hills. I come today again, respectfully, to ask for some equity for the Sand Hills region. I ask further that you implement one of those 4 maps, preferably CBK 4. It's simply the righteous and equitable thing to do. In regards to Senate redistricting, it would appear that the authors of the 3 published maps, SST4, SBK5, SBK6, heard our voices in the Sand Hills, all of the, of Moore and Cumberland County grouping. All 3 of the published maps appear to have kept the precincts that were contiguous to Fort Bragg, which were Manchester, Spring Lake, West Area 1 and 2. All 3 of these maps appear to have kept our historical areas together. We are asking that you implement SBK 6. Finally, I ask again humbly that you consider to give equity to the Sand Hills regions of North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles McKellar, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Charles McKellar, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force, retired, and a resident of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Committee members, we are like in our oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I come before you this afternoon to make a case in support of Sand Hills Congressional District. We are a distinct geographical area, location, and population center with the honor of hosting the largest active duty military population in the United States, and with a considerable veteran and military family members residing in Cumberland County. We are also the only metropolitan area that does not have a congressional district linked to it. With the addition of the 14th Congressional District to be added, there is no better time than now to honor the citizens in the Sand Hills. This is an addition and does not take away from any district that now exists. My specific request is to the people of the Sand Hills that we have representation in Congress and that the maps avoid splitting precincts and minimize splitting municipalities. Please maintain the continuity of the people of the region, county, and precincts. The people of the Sand Hills are better served when those of like regions and perspectives have a voice in Congress and the North Carolina legislature. The three maps I think best serves the Sand Hills are CBK 4, CBK 5, and CST 6. The other congressional maps only present the same that currently exist in different formats. When the community, I thank you for this time.
Thank you, sir. Richard Baltaro. East Carolina, Richard Baltaro.
Thank you for this public hearing. I'm Richard Baltaro, private citizen living in Winterville, North Carolina. With modern technology, the way redistricting has been done for years in North Carolina is changing us. Now the elected officials choose the voters. The voters do no longer elect the elected officials. The final decision of gerrymandering is done by elected politicians, Republicans and Democrats, sometimes only one of them. The present system of redistricting in North Carolina is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. We need a nonpartisan decision-making. Most likely, I have only two choices, two polarized choices. One, an African-American minority district, or two, conservative evangelical Christian white district. Is anyone surprised that our democracy is in polarization danger and we are encouraged to choose only strong partisans and no real moderates or real independents? Thank you.
Lisa Walker, Union County Democratic Party. She's at Central Piedmont. You're recognized for 2 minutes.
My name is Lisa Walker, and I am the chair of the Union County Democratic Party, and I'm here to provide comments on maps CMT 9, CBK 3, CST 2, and SST 4. These maps are unconstitutional and violate the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal protection. These maps, motivated by partisan intent, do not provide fair representation of our state. North Carolina is a 50-50 state with 36% registered Democrats, 35% unaffiliated, and 30% Republicans. And the co-chairs of this committee have drawn maps that are clearly gerrymandered, providing 11-3 or 10-4 split. One doesn't have to look far for examples. Mecklenburg and Wake counties split up into 3 to 4 districts, so Democratic voters have little influence. Suburban Wake, one of the fastest growing areas in the state, lumped together with faraway rural counties. And in my little Union County, the House map has the city of Monroe cracked down the middle, diluting Monroe's voting power and splitting the Black and Latino vote in the area of Union County with the densest population of people of color. You have options. CBK 4 and CBK 5 provide a fair representation of our state and does not silence the voices of your constituents. We are tired of unfair maps. We are tired of North Carolina being the poster child for gerrymandering. We are tired of litigation that results in us having to redraw maps, come to meetings like this every 4 years. We are tired and we are angry about the immense amount of time, energy, and expense this is costing the taxpayers of North Carolina. This is wrong. There's a lot at stake at this hearing today. Democracy is at stake. Please put people over politics and vote for CBK 4 and CBK 5, or maps that provide a fair representation of our state. Thank you.
Ricky Lung. North Carolina Asian Americans Together. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm submitting comments on my personal capacity today. My name is Ricky Long, and I've been a resident of North Carolina for more than 25 years. Grew up in Greensboro and currently live in the Triangle. Asian Americans are the fastest growing racial demographic in the state. Along with the large population growth in the Latino community, this marks a significant increase in immigrant, migrant, and refugee populations over the last decade. With the state of things around the world, from Afghanistan to Sudan to Hong Kong, we're likely only going to see an increasingly diverse community with increasingly diverse needs among North Carolina's residents. This is why it's critically important to have ample time, opportunities, and accessibility, including in languages other than English, for our communities to comment on redistricting maps drawn by the committee. The current process is inadequate, as many have already pointed out yesterday and today. With only days' notice for these public hearings, even those who are fluent in English and knowledgeable about the process struggle to get here and voice their concerns, making it nearly impossible to gather input and uplift voices from the integral parts of our communities who have limited English proficiency. In addition, not taking into account racial data in the redistricting process ignores the history and current reality of discrimination that Indigenous people and communities of color, Black communities in particular, face. With limited time for analysis, I can already see that there may be potential concern for dilution of the Black votes in northeastern part of the state on one of the proposed Senate maps. Without further intentional analysis for racial equity, there may very well be other areas concerned. While I consider North Carolina home and love its people as family, I'm confused by a leadership that does not appear to give enough value to the opinions of its people that it represents. And I hope that it's merely an oversight, and this sets a tone and model for how people across the world will see our democratic values carried out. So I hope you'll take this responsibility seriously. Thanks.
Sarah Sacados, Catawba County Democratic Party. She's at Central Piedmont Community College. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. It was difficult to be here today, too difficult. I heard about the hearings a mere day after they'd been announced, but still I barely snagged a spot before they were filled. Since the virtual slots were already gone, I had to leave work 4 hours early and drive an hour to be here in Charlotte. I am privileged enough to be in a position to do so. How many are not? While the original series of public hearings on redistricting felt just as insincere as these, they were at least announced somewhat in advance. There were quite a few of them, and they were fairly spread out across the state. We had mere days' notice to review your proposed maps before today. And yet, when I started reviewing them, I realized that perhaps not that much more time was necessary. I found that I was able to come to a conclusion pretty quickly. The GOP-controlled legislature's pledge to not use racial or partisan data in drawing these maps was a complete farce. It is absurd to think that any representative does not know his or her district well enough to know who lives where without having to reference the data. Redrawing district maps is an incredibly complicated process. But what's wrong here is incredibly simple. Gerrymandering is wrong. Politicians should not be able to select their own constituents, period. But as we all know, and as the Republican Party continues to prove, those in power will never cede their power willingly. So until we as citizens of this great state decide to stand up to our representatives and demand change, we will be stuck with the status quo. We cannot wait another 6 years to have the courts strike down these unfair maps. We cannot wait until 2030 to see if those in power then are more willing to play nice. We must demand that our legislators represent their public's overwhelming desire to end gerrymandering once and for all by moving the redistricting process under the control of an independent, nonpartisan commission.
Bonnie McCarthy with Neighbors on Call. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
My name is Bonnie McCarthy. I live in Chatham County, and my comments refer to North Carolina House Map HBK 11. Chatham County is currently one of the fastest growing areas in the state. By adding the proposed 3 precincts from Randolph County, this would raise the district's population to 91,189, which is over 4,000 individuals above the ideal size. Excluding the Providence precinct would result in a population of 83,475, well within the ideal size parameters. The addition of Providence precinct would then run up against the upper limit of the plus or minus 5% population change guidelines set by the state. The anticipated growth of just one mega development alone, Chatham Park, will quickly put us over those guidelines and calls into question the wisdom of adding any unnecessary precincts. Providence precinct border is not contiguous with Chatham border and is geographically the most distant. These numbers alone, the addition of Providence precinct is simply not necessary. Chatham County enjoys an 85% turnout in the last election and voted 55% Democrat, 43% Republican. However, the addition of Providence precinct, 16% Democrat and 82% Republican, is proposed simply to dilute the current political distribution, making it far harder for any Democrat to win. Providence is rural, while Chatham is a rapidly growing and urbanizing area. I want to be in a voting district that shares my interests and retains the character of Chatham County. I ask that you do not include Providence precinct with Chatham County in the redrawn District 56 map.
Brenda Fairfax at East Carolina. Brenda Fairfax. She's signed up at East Carolina.
Good afternoon. I'm Brenda Fairfax. I'm disappointed that Pitt County has been split into 2 districts. I'm more disappointed that Pitt County is now a part of the Outer Banks. Please tell me, what do we have in common with the Outer Banks? We know that Pitt County is no longer a part of District 1, which was G.K. Butterfield, and he spanned from Durham to Elizabeth City. I find it interesting now that G.K. Butterfield is even cut out of his own district. We'd like to be able to select our representatives and not have our representatives select us. Have you even thought about having an independent redistricting committee which will look at all the facts? I think it's so unfair with a 50-50 split North Carolina that we're seeing Republicans just do their thing with no fear. Our democracy is in chains, and it should not be. So I'd like to speak on HBK 11 for Pitt County. I see where you have also put people in 7 and 8, mostly Republicans. Please tell us, how was those lines drawn? Thank you.
Marjorie Stewart at Central Piedmont Community College.
Hello, I'm Margie Storch. I live in Precinct 85 in Charlotte. North Carolina redistricting criteria prohibits consideration of voters' race or election results, but aggregate data by precinct should be considered to ensure accurate representation of voters statewide. I see that redistricting rules allow consideration of elected members' residence. Are you more concerned with protecting incumbents than fairly reflecting the demographics and partisan preferences of North Carolina residents? The SST4 State Senate District map received a grade of F from the Princeton Gerrymandering Project for partisan fairness. The HBK 11 State House District map also received a grade of F for partisan fairness. Analysis of the GOP-drawn maps yield heavy Republican majorities for our congressional and state legislative delegations. Based on North Carolina voter history in the 2020 presidential election, fair maps would have an equal amount of districts leaning Democratic and Republican. Also, there should be more minority-majority districts based on our minority population, over 31%, than the maps proposed now. In 2020, white people were overrepresented in our state legislature with 78% of elected members. The impact of the proposed maps results in unfair representation for North Carolina voters and must be redrawn. The impact is what we all have to live with for 10 years, regardless of the intent or the criteria used. Also, the primary date should be moved forward to at least May so candidates and voters are able to understand the new districts and their constituencies. Please reflect the will of the voters. Thank you.
Harry Taylor with the League of Women Voters. He's at Central Piedmont Community College. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
I'm Harry Taylor, speaking for myself and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte, Mecklenburg. Today's hearing is offered to comment on maps that have been posted to the website. Deciphering the various iterations of those maps is complicated, but what you are doing is not. Half the 7 million person electorate in North Carolina doesn't vote the way you do, so to retain power, it's your obvious intent to rig the maps to sequester and lock those votes, mine included, away for the next 10 years, making them powerless and meaningless. I've lived and voted in Mecklenburg County Precinct 32 for 34 years. In 2020, for the very first time, the legislative and congressional candidates I voted for won. Best I can tell is the court order redraw resulted in the only fair and legal maps in a decade. Yet here we go again. Posted legislative maps are drawn with squirrely lines and double-bunked incumbents, conspicuously designed to run competent lawmakers out of the legislature. Ostensibly, we live in a democracy. That's a place where we share and respect the ideas of others. It's a promise, it's a vision, it's a dream where we, the people, play a role in the system that govern our lives and our futures. It's fragile and requires respect for people and their ideas, for your colleagues in the legislature, for the balance of power and the vision itself. Rigging elections is not democracy. We know fair and proportional maps can be drawn. Duke University professors demonstrated how 5 years ago. Example, looking at Senate map SCH2, we see it far more fair than SST4. The former is indicative of what believers in democracy would draw. My community of interest is North Carolina, 10.5 million people strong. This is our state. It's not you. It doesn't belong to your political party. And we want a fair and functioning democracy for the next decade. Do not close us out again. Thank you.
Jane Whitley with the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. She's at Central Piedmont Community College. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Jane Whitley. I am chair of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party, and I'm a resident of Charlotte in Mecklenburg County in the Plaza Midwood neighborhood, where I've lived since 1994, just 4 miles from downtown Charlotte. But I grew up in rural Rowan County in Ellis Crossroads, where my brother still resides, and he is the chief of the volunteer fire department there. So when I saw the proposed congressional maps, I was shocked to see that under one configuration, Mecklenburg County would be cut up into 4 pieces, with each piece associated with a group of rural counties surrounding Mecklenburg County, including Rowan. The piece of Mecklenburg County where I've lived for over 25 years would no longer be associated with other areas in the metropolitan area where we encounter issues such as traffic and through our taxes pay for things commonly associated with urban areas, water, sewer, fire protection. Rowan County is a great place, but where I grew up, we have volunteer fire departments, traffic's never an issue, and we don't have that much in common with the area where I live now. So what is going on here? How can this be considered a zone of commonality? It appears to be simply a plan to chop up Mecklenburg County so that our votes don't count and our interests are not protected. Furthermore, I see that there is a plan to double bunk Senator Mushtaba Muhammad and my senator, Senator Joyce Waddell. Senator Waddell lives in a precinct that's just on the border of the new district, so the only conclusion that I can draw is that this is an attempt to eliminate representation of minorities and women in the state Senate. There's also a map that includes changing Senator Natasha Marcus's district into Iredell County. So it's clear that there's no attempt to draw districts with communities of common interests. There's no attempt to draw maps with any common sense. This is an attempt to reduce the number of minorities and women in the General Assembly for political purposes. We need better maps that include rather than exclude, where our voices count. We can do better. We deserve better. Let's do better. Thank you.
Joe Kleininger at Central Piedmont Community College. You're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. And thanks to the members I see wearing masks, for you are protecting our children and helping to conquer COVID. My name is Joe Cloninger, and I've lived in one of these 3 towns, Davidson, Cornelius, and Huntersville, over the past 25 years, and I'm currently an unaffiliated voter. For over 20 years, I have served children and parents in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools as a teacher and a school superintendent. Today, I have 2 asks for you. Number 1, I ask you not to gerrymander the maps as presented, as it will dilute my vote. Rather than keeping me in the suburban community in Mecklenburg County where I live and I call home, and where I share issues with my neighbors, now you are moving me and my vote to a rural district where my vote and my voice will be unnoticed and disregarded. Number 2, I ask that you redraw the maps to consolidate communities with similar interests and not dilute the vote of my neighbors in precincts 127 and 206. The proposed maps are an affront to the Free Elections Clause, Section 10, in the state constitution. In summary, I plead with you not to gerrymander and for you to follow the state constitution regarding free and fair elections. I thank you for your service, and we all look forward to your using all of our valuable input, demonstrating to us that this hearing was informative and will inform your changes to the maps, because you are our representatives. Thank you.
Marquez Thompson with Democracy NC at East Carolina University. Marquez Thompson. You're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you for having me, and my apologies if you can see my son here. Normally he's with his babysitter, who we call grandma, but she was suddenly unavailable. And his mom is at work, like most people are, at 3 p.m. in the evening. I work, as you said, at Democracy NC, so technically I'm at work too. But this is my job. My job is to do this kind of work, and you guys are making my job harder these days. My job is to teach people about how this democracy works and that their voice does matter. So it's hard for people to believe that you really care about their voice when you have hearings in the middle of the day, when you drop maps on Thursday and Friday, and have hearings about them on Monday and Tuesday of next week, when you don't consider race data in the maps that you draw. I could go on and on about the process, but let's talk about the maps. There's a House map that I've seen that makes changes to District 9. It actually changes the number to District 7, as far as I can tell. So that's going to make my job harder for people to understand what's happening with their maps. House District 9 was a very competitive district. That means that whoever holds that seat has to work for both sides and really work hard for the local people. It means both parties put time and energy into that district, and that those votes are important. It gives us power locally. So when you make that a safe seat, you really are taking power away from the local people. There's a Senate map that has county clusters that run districts from Warren County all the way to Colorado County. Just imagine a legislator in that district trying to fairly represent those people from all, I mean, just think about the miles he would have to travel. It's really going to be hard. So what the people want in North Carolina is representation. I talk to a lot of people, and you can tell that I can tell you that a regular Democratic voter would rather have a Republican who understands his or her economic values than a Democrat from someplace else who doesn't. A Republican would rather have a Democrat who truly shares their values than a Republican from someplace else that doesn't really represent that. People want representation. When we say of, for, and by the people, we're talking about of the people, of us, people that know your values and live them. I believe in this democracy, and it's my job to help people, other people believe in it. It's your job to draw fair maps so that people will justify their belief in this democracy. Please do your job, draw fair maps. Thank you.
Angela Lunking at Central Piedmont Community College, Senate District 37, House District 104, Congressional District 9. Angela Lunking.
Well, my name is Angela Lunking, and I am a resident of Charlotte. I live in the community of South Charlotte, and I echo a lot of my fellow speakers today. When I last spoke, I asked for more time. I second others to say it's well within your power to give us more time for, say, February filing or a May primary. But given that you've put these maps up, I too had to take time off, rearrange my schedule to be able to be here today. I confess that I had trouble even downloading the maps, so I can't really speak to them directly, and I'm glad others have. But I would like to speak on this time on behalf of my community, which is South Charlotte. I live in the Stonecroft neighborhood, which is bordered by, it's the triangle, sort of trapezoid below Fairview, bordered on one side by Carmel, the other side by Providence, and at the bottom it's got Pineville Matthews running below it. And as I know, currently Mecklenburg County exceeds the number for a district. So there are parts that will not be able to fit in 12. Formerly, my precinct 69 and my community was lumped with Congressional District 9. We had very little in common as well. So I echo others that at a minimum, we are a growing urban area with issues of rising density, loss of green spaces, housing issues, and infrastructural things. And we probably have very little with the good folks way far off in, say, Robeson, Anson, and I hear from the Sand Hill area, they kind of wish to have their community represented as well. So I would ask that I continue to be included in communities of similar interests with either suburban urban areas, such as even redistricting in, say, a Cabarrus, Union, Stanley configuration, more contiguous, more compact, and more representative of our common issues. Thank you very much.
Joseph McCarthy, GOP. Joseph. Mr. McCarthy, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Joseph McCarthy. I live in Governor's Club in the northern section of Chatham County. I'm a member of the Chatham County GOP, and my last presidential primary vote was in the Republican primary in Florida before my wife and I moved to North Carolina. I'm not giving you any statistics or numbers. I am making an appeal. I think that gerrymandering is inherently dishonest and anti-democratic, and I would wish that the legislature would draw legitimate maps which follow the popular vote in the state. I'm not optimistic you will do it. I'm very sure you won't. You may be forced to by others, but you won't do it on your own. I would ask that sometime in the future, you institute either a bipartisan or nonpartisan committee to form these districts, or else find a nonpartisan or bipartisan computer algorithm to do the same. I must remind everybody here that Democratic majorities can be just as pernicious as Republican majorities. And I think it is in the best interest of this state and the population in the state to do the right thing and do not gerrymander. Thank you.
Sylvia Borkman at East Carolina. You're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Sylvia Bjorkman. I'm in Greenville, North Carolina, and I'm a voter in District 9 in Pitt County. And I'm concerned that the proposed redistricting maps will change the makeup of our district from one that has been balanced and bipartisan to one that is very partisan. The maps continue to reflect a history of gerrymandering in North Carolina to achieve certain political outcomes for specific parties rather than fair representation for all people. While results of the recent census will mean that Pitt County will have 2 rather than 3 districts, I support and encourage finding small changes to the existing maps that will continue to maintain the bipartisan nature of our districts, rather than the significant changes proposed here. In support of these comments, I wanted to share a couple of thoughts from a news article from the WRAL that was posted yesterday that I think are relevant here. Politically, North Carolina is a swing state with neither majority party, Republican or Democrat, having a large advantage. Yet the new congressional district maps proposed here will give the Republican Party a 13-3 advantage in U.S. House seats by splitting Democratic counties into different districts to reduce their political power. The proposed maps will have an overwhelming number of districts in North Carolina that are going to be Republican, regardless of how others play out. This continued gerrymandering for political advantage of a specific party, in this case, the Republican Party, is happening across North Carolina. It's not fair to voters. It will likely lead to continued court challenges, wasted money, and time away from other issues that could truly help the people of our state and our community. Thank you.
Gil Pagan at, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
My name is Gil Pagan. I am the director of Hispanos del Sur, that's Hispanics of the South, a conservative grassroots outreach organization working in North Carolina and the southern states to engage and activate the Hispanic community into the political process for their voices to be heard. Movilizamos a los hispanos para impulsar iniciativas políticas que los afectan a ellos y a sus familias. For those who no habla español, we mobilize Hispanics to push policy initiatives that affect them and their families. The Hispanic population is the fastest growing minority group in North Carolina and the country. From 2010 to 2020, those were census years, we grew 28% faster in North Carolina than other states across the country. The nationwide growth for Hispanics was 19.6. We grew 28% in North Carolina. 56% of North Carolinians are Hispanics. They were born in the U.S. There are 1 million Hispanics in North Carolina right now. How is this relevant? When looking at new lines using community of interest criteria, please look at Cumberland County Districts 42 and 44, Pitt County Districts 8 and 9. The community of interest criteria for you to review in those districts should have a high participation rate of opportunity scholarships, charter schools, and homeschooling. Then overlay that to employers in manufacturing, food processing, and agricultural businesses. Hispanos del Sur has heard of an organization called All on the Line, a program of Eric Holder's National Redistricting Committee, who is seeking to use public hearings as a way to assist in future litigation of district maps and training people on what to say in these hearings to move their agenda and not really care about equitable and redistricting lines. Those organizations do not represent us, Hispanos del Sur, or Hispanics. We speak for ourselves. Please consider the community of interest criteria when finalizing the new lines. Gracias, amigos y amigas.
Thank you, sir. Minerva Freeman at East Carolina. Minerva Freeman. You're recognized for 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to thank you all for coming to hear what the residents have to say. I have said and I've listened at comments, and I really feel that I don't have anything additional to say. I hope that you would take the information that the people have said, take it back, and again, draw fair maps. I've heard gerrymandering, of course. I've heard pretty much rigging the system. We are, as it is right now, we're picking our voters instead of the voters picking our legislator. That is wrong. I represent many organizations in the community, and we're all concerned about voting and getting the people to be more informed. I represent the NAACP, the Pitt Greenville section of the National Council for Negro Women, Pitt County Delta Sigma Theta sorority, Democracy, North Carolina. Marcus was here a little early. And all we're saying is that we want everybody to have representative government. That's what we want. I encourage you to take that back, draw fair maps so that everybody will have an opportunity to do what is right. If I could say one other thing, if you would think of this like a sports game or whatever, players work hard. They work hard to play the game. They get out there, they play, they win some, they lose some. They shake hands, then they go back and they work harder, not rigging the system so that they can win. So I would just encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Ron Osborne. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
I live on a small farm in southern Alamance County. I'm a lifelong North Carolinian. At one time or another, I've been a registered Republican as well as a registered Democrat. I expect my elected representatives to reflect the desires of my neighbors out here where I live in the country. I generally don't expect to have the same representatives as people in the cities. City dwellers have different interests, other needs and priorities than where I live. I don't care for those folks to be controlling my voice any more than I and my neighbors should control the city voices. But urban folks do deserve to be represented as they desire, just as country folks do. Most of the proposed congressional, Senate, and House maps intentionally fail to respect this. CBK3, CMT9, and CST2, which tear up the big cities and parcels their pieces out in and amongst rural parts, some halfway across the state, are outright offensive. CBA2 and CBK5 are almost insulting. CST6, CST8, and CBK4 seem to strive for fairness and are tolerable. SST4 seems troublesome to me, and with HBK11, districts 54, 55, 56 here in my backyard have got problems that appear easy to mend. Why group Northeast Randolph with all of Chatham when you could leave it with the rest of Randolph? Why stick West Burlington and Elon townspeople with rural Alamance and likewise lump rural Northeast Alamance with towns along the I-85 corridor? We all know why that's done. It's just like when I meet a car that's crossed the center line. I think to myself, that driver wants my side of the road as well as his. Please remember the golden rule. I realize doing the right thing rather than what's personally beneficial is hard, maybe harder than y'all are up for trying. But if you don't try better than you've shown us so far, some of y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you.
David Ames. Folks, we respectfully ask not to clap or not to react to the comments. David Ames from the Sierra Club.
Yes, sir. I'm a resident of Greenville, been here for some 40 years and active in the Sierra Club. Sierra Club supports the process of redistricting, but does not support gerrymandering. We feel it's bad for the political process, results in decisions made in primaries, candidates with more extreme views. The process becomes hyperpolarized and districts are no longer competitive. Example of that is right here in Greenville District 9. This district, its boundaries as used in the previous election, resulted in a very strong competitive outcome. Outcome that was different by 2% between the winner and the loser, just 2% of the vote. It was a hard-fought election. The new proposed map would show that this district will now go completely Republican, as predicted. How is this done? Well, what has happened is as many black folks as could be identified and Democratic voters were placed in the surrounding districts, so that District 9 now the decision is going to be made in the primary. We think this is a bad way to do things and would recommend that it not be used as the way of redistricting the county. Thank you.
Jonathan Riley with Durham Progressive Democrats. Jonathan Riley, he signed up for this auditorium. Christopher Sekarak at Central Piedmont Community College. Christopher Sekarak.
Christopher Sekarak.
You're recognized.
Central Piedmont Community College. I am independently representing North Mecklenburg County. My family, my wife and I came to this area over 35 years ago when I was brought here by the Duke Power Company to help with the relicensing of the McGuire Nuclear Station. My wife and I built our home, raised our family in North Mecklenburg. We are intimately involved with this community, and to see these redistricting maps diluting the needs and interests of this area makes no sense at all. Our state representative is Natasha Marcus. She has done a very good job representing this area. The new redistricting map for the S1 would dilute that whole situation with a rural population north of us. And this is clearly a gerrymandering effort. The U.S. congressional map also lumping North Mecklenburg, basically a suburban community, with the rural populations of Rutherford County. Come on now, Lincoln County? This makes no sense at all. And further, the covert dissemination of these maps buried in folders with obscure abbreviations in the short time frame in which to comment is outrageous. Clearly, you're not interested in public comment. Thank you.
Jeannie Welch, Democrats of North Mecklenburg. She's at Central Piedmont Community College. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I would like to echo the concerns of the other residents of North Mecklenburg County. I live in Cornelius in Precinct 240. We are concerned about the attempt to divert Davidson to Iredell County. The three northern towns of Davidson, Cornelius, and Huntersville are contiguous. Our concerns are common. We are in the same county and in the same county commission district. And so we urge you to respect county lines and keep Davidson with the other towns in North Mecklenburg. I also want to echo a previous speaker about gerrymandering. We have been the national poster child for gerrymandering, and we deserve better than this. Our state is better than this. So I urge you to reconsider SST4 and keep Davidson within Mecklenburg County and the contiguous towns. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Darius Hinton, the Community Warehouse Venue. He is signed up to Central Piedmont Community College. Darius Hinton. Darius Hinton. Charles McClawhorn, Chairman of the Pitt County Democratic Party at East Carolina. Charles McClawhorn. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed map of House districts in Pitt County is deliberately intended to give advantage to the Republican candidate by the alignment of voters. Partisan redistricting, which is what this is, means that the election and continual re-election of one candidate is assured by his or her affiliation with the party. The interests and needs of citizens in the other party can be ignored with impunity. This wasn't fair when the Democrats did it, and it's not fair for the Republicans to do it. Two wrongs don't make a right. At the root of our political culture in America is the way districts are drawn. In Pitt County, by packing racial minorities in one district and diluting them in another district, you're deliberately disenfranchising them. By using an essential north-south alignment of districts, you are moving Republicans into what has always been District 9 in order to dilute the votes of Democrats in Pitt County. At the root of this unfair political outcome is redistricting. The branches are dysfunctional legislative process and meaningless public dialogue, just like what we're having here today. Lift up your eyes in North Carolina and see the rampant partisan bickering about every issue under the sun. Open your ears to the ugly words spoken about every aspect of public policy by otherwise civilized neighbors, by school teachers and businessmen and businesswomen, and even by pastors in our churches, using words, ugly words that are the product of divisive rhetoric and political conduct in Raleigh and in Washington. I ask you to rise above politics and listen to the better angels of your nature and reject this nasty plan to carve up Pitt County for the partisan advantage of one party. If you will resist the urge to do this, we will be the first ones to thank you for it.
Jim Womack, Conservative Coalition of North Carolina, signed up here in the auditorium. Jim Womack. Barbara D'Antonio, Wayne County Democratic Women. She signed up at East Carolina University. Barbara D'Antonio. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Okay, I have been told that I don't speak loud enough, so I'll try to do my best. I'm Barbara D'Antonio, and I am here representing the Wayne County Democratic Women. I'm going to try and make it very easy because a lot of people have got good points that I also had. One is the fact that there were several groups that monitor our redistricting, and one said we got an F. That F on fairness means we flunked. And so I thought that I would make it real simple for you. Many years ago, 60 in fact, my brother decided that he was going to share this bag of Twizzlers. It was his favorite candy. So what he did was he went, and we had 5 members that he was going to share it with. So he gave everybody an equal amount, and then he decided, oh, no, Barbara doesn't like Twizzlers. I'm giving her 1. And then he went through, and all the family members got 1 piece, and he got the rest of the bag. He was 4 years old. This legislature that's doing these redistricting maps are not 4 years old. We expect you to be fair. And it's not fair when you get the big bag of candy and we, the opposing party, who is not in office at this time or has a majority, is getting these crumbs. So I looked at the Wayne County map, and it showed that one of our legislators, one of our reps, he got a 34% advantage, give or take. The other one got a 17. Now, why is there such a disparity? So I'm asking you to put the candy back in the bag and take it out and bring it out fairly to all of us. Thank you.
Rebecca Powers at East Carolina University.
Not present, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Gwendolyn Robinson Green at East Carolina. Do we have Gwendolyn Robinson Green there?
Not present, Mr. Chairman.
Janice Robinson at Central Piedmont Community College.
Good afternoon. My name is Janice Robinson, and I'm chair of Precinct 148, which is Ballantyne in South Charlotte. I am also secretary of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party and a member of the African American Caucus of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. My first question is, why in the world are we having this meeting out here at the CPCC campus by the airport? Again, how do you expect working class families who live in Charlotte and may use the public transportation to be here to have their voices heard? Do you not want to hear their voices? I've only heard of these public hearings literally 2 days before they're being held. Once again, they're held at an inconvenient time and location during the day with little to no prior notice. I too had to take off work to be here. This year's process seems deliberately designed to give the appearance of transparency, but with little to no publicity on dates of proposed maps and public hearings. It's clear that the committees want to proceed as usual and avoid representing the people. I absolutely demand more time to process these maps and understand how my community, precincts, and districts are affected. And I again advocate for an independent, nonpartisan citizens committee to perform this process.
Sarah Jane Shaffer at Central Piedmont Community College.
My name is Sarah Jane Shaffer. I live in Davidson, North Mecklenburg County. I'm not a native North Carolinian. I've only been here about 4 years. My first comment is regarding the senatorial map SST4 that is of major concern. Davidson representation is redrawn to Iredell County. You've crossed the county line and the precinct. That is wrong. My Davidson community is not rural, as is most of Iredell County. In fact, when I first moved to North Carolina, I lived in Iredell County for a couple of years and specifically moved to Davidson because I wanted a suburban, urban, and diverse community. Mecklenburg and Iredell counties have different needs, and it makes no sense to connect it to Iredell County unless the purpose is to eliminate the current political voice in Davidson. Frankly, that's all I can conclude from that move. My second comment is regarding your process. I'm shocked and appalled at the lack of interest in public comment. You're very transparent. You do not want public comment. A commitment to public involvement would be evidenced by hearing dates available on weekends and time for final review of approved maps. It took forever to figure out these maps. Multiple maps are confusing, and it makes it very hard for anyone to be involved. And finally, the congressional map that makes sense is CBK4. The other maps split up Charlotte and put it with rural communities, and it does not allow for adequate representation of the urban community. Is your purpose to dilute and destroy the voice of the community? And that's what would happen. My comments are consistent with others testifying, and I strongly urge you to link districts with similar issues in community. And on a final note, politicians are interested in demographics and who's their demographic. I am an educated woman that lives in the suburbs, and I am not doing anything with Republicans because of this gerrymandering. You need to fix it. Thank you.
Maurice Holland from the Moore County Democratic Party. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Maurice Holland. I'm a native of Moore County. I'm the chair of the Moore County Democratic Party. I rise to speak in favor of congressional map CBK4 because of the establishment of a Sandhills-rooted congressional district. I'm speaking against State Senate map SST4 in that it has extreme districts, especially districts 21 and 22. I am speaking against NC House map HBK 11 in that Moore County, for the first time since World War II, will be divided into 3 districts. Moore County has historically had at least one district that represented the majority of Moore County. HB 11 will split us between District 57, 59, and District 60. District 59 will only contain, Moore County will make up 49% of that district. Richmond County will make up 50%, 50.81%. District 60 will run us into Randolph County, and District 57 will run us into Lee County. And it will be confusing for Moore County residents as to which district they live in. Thank you for your time.
Sandra Deegan. You're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
My name is Dr. Sandra Jean Carolina Deegan. I'm a native-born North Carolinian. I currently reside in Chatham County. As a Chathamite, I'm going to speak briefly to proposed House District 56 for the State House on proposed map HBK 11. We Chathamites are of one mind about this issue, so my remarks would echo those of several previous speakers, and I'll be brief about that. HD 56 would join Chatham with 3 Randolph County precincts as part of a new 4-county grouping. Addition of the third of these Randolph precincts, namely Providence Precinct, it's going to adversely affect Chatham County residents in several ways. It'll create a population imbalance in the districts of the county grouping. It ignores the accelerated current and projected population growth of Chatham County. It would result in the dilution of representational power for Chatham, as ever-growing numbers of Chathamites would be represented by only one member of the North Carolina State House. As proposed, it is a clear example of partisan gerrymandering. So the answer is very simple. Keep Randolph precincts Liberty and Staley in this new proposed district and remove Providence. With regards to the proposed North Carolina redistricting maps, they clearly reflect partisan gerrymandering, which violates the fundamental principle of one person, one vote of equal power. This is fundamental to our democracy. The redistricting process has been rushed and has been far from transparent. We can do better than this in North Carolina. I would also add extremely briefly that I affirm other speakers who have asked for translators and materials in other foreign languages which reflect our changing demographics, so that we can include all of our residents in that process, regardless of the language they speak. Thank you all very much.
Mate Sands, indivisible, NC9 at Central Piedmont Community College. Mate Sands. Janice Parker. Janice Parker, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Janice Parker. I live in Chatham County in District 56, and I have many of the same concerns that have been addressed by other residents of Chatham County. We're concerned about the proposed redistricting map HBK 11, which would join 3 precincts in Randolph County to Chatham County to form a new district. The proposed district is not good practice. The addition of 3 precincts from Randolph County, Stacey, Liberty, and Providence, at a time when Chatham County is experiencing explosive growth, would create a district that is over the desired population size for an electoral district. The addition is not necessary. Providence Precinct, which is the farthest away from Chatham County, could be joined to less densely populated areas in the county grouping. In addition, the proposed change would dilute the Democratic vote in the new district. Chatham is more urban, democratic, and diverse than the precincts proposed for addition. The new configuration creates a presumption of political gerrymandering, and political or racial gerrymandering, which have cost North Carolina untold thousands of dollars in litigation, depress voter engagement as people feel that their votes are useless. This undermines foundational values of our country. So I request that you keep Chatham County whole, but do not join Providence Precinct to District 56. It's not contiguous to Chatham County, and as an agricultural area, it has different priorities. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
CN Jasmine with Black Voters Matter at East Carolina University. CN Jasmine.
Not present, Mr. Chairman.
Mari Curry at East Carolina.
Not present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mary Jane Conti at Central Piedmont Community College.
My name is Mary Jane Conti, and I'm speaking today as both a citizen and a Democratic precinct chair in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. Thank you for scheduling public hearings so that North Carolinians can provide their comments regarding the drawing of congressional and state maps. However, given that there are over 2 million registered voters in North Carolina, 2 days of hearings that only allow around 200 people to speak is not sufficient, and as others have stated, 3 p.m. hearings are not convenient for most working people. For the past 2 years, I have resided in State Senate District 40 and House District 99. Both of these districts include the town of Mint Hill, which is where members of my 55-plus community shop, bank, and support the various businesses in town. The proposed maps HBK 11 and SST 4 would move my voting precinct 201 out of both of those districts, and we would no longer be included with Mint Hill. Since we consider Mint Hill our community of interest, I implore you to keep precinct 201 with the other Mint Hill area precincts. Prior to moving to my current neighborhood, I lived in northern Mecklenburg County near Huntersville, where we frequently went to Cornelius and Davidson to patronize their various businesses and restaurants. On map SCH2, you have grouped 4 Cornelius and Davidson precincts with Iredell County instead of Mecklenburg County. Please leave precincts 206, 208, 240, and 242 in the same House and Senate districts as the rest of northern Mecklenburg County, as these are cohesive and similar precincts and should not be grouped with the more rural Iredell County. Regarding the proposed congressional district maps, 3 of these maps split Mecklenburg County into 3 or 4 districts, resulting in multiple precincts being divided. In the case of CBK3, it divides 6 precincts, including my precinct 201. Dividing up precincts is a very bad idea and creates unnecessary challenges for both citizens and elected representatives. Please consider maps such as CBK4 and CBK5 that only split Mecklenburg County into 2 congressional districts and only divide 1 precinct. Thank you.
Barbara Glawthorn at East Carolina. Barbara Glawthorn.
One moment, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. My name is Barbara Gladhorn, and I'm a resident of Pitt County. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to address you concerning an issue about which I care deeply. And I think all those people who have spoken prior to me today have shown their concern. I have this concern for myself, but also for my country as a whole. We are entitled people in that we are guaranteed the right to vote by the Constitution of the United States and that of the state of North Carolina. 1 person, 1 vote. But we are also entitled not only to cast a ballot, but to have that vote count. That is why this redistricting process is so vital to each and every one of us. It is with that background that I'm asking that these maps, now in the process of being redrawn, be fair to all and not be designed to benefit a single party or to secure an incumbent's reelection. The current maps presented to us clearly packs Democratic and Black voters into Representative Smith's District 8 here in Pitt County, and is in attempt to dismantle District 9, currently held by Representative Farkas. In statement after statement in earlier hearings, citizens of Pitt County asked that municipalities not be split. Winterville specifically asked that it not be split, yet the map does just this. And it makes me think that even though you've asked for feedback, input before you drew the maps, you really are not listening.
James Davis. Is James Davis in the auditorium? I believe he's outside. Mr. Sergeant at Arms, can you see if James Davis is in the hallway? Mr. Davis, you're recognized whenever you're ready for a period of up to 2 minutes.
1 minute?
Yes, sir. Your time won't start until you start talking.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, all. My name is James Davis. My friends call me Jim. I'm the retired sheriff of Hope County, North Carolina. I'm here today to represent the 9th Congressional District of the North Carolina Democratic Party. I served as the chair of that party. I'm here today to express my concerns regarding the entire North Carolina redistricting process. While I want to advocate for total transparency and fairness in the redistricting process, I would like to advocate for transparency and fairness. I would also like to specifically discuss Hope County and the North Carolina Sand Hills regions. Over the past 10 years, we in the North Carolina, we in Hope County have enjoyed and retained a county cluster relationship with Cumberland County, legislative representative, senatorial representative, and Scotland County in our legislative representative. Many of our colleagues today have talked about the Sand Hills region. I'm here to advocate for a Sand Hills district being created for a congressional district, as in the map that was created for CB K4. Thank you for hearing us today, and that many of the speakers before me, please hear our plea regarding fair and equitable maps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, members, that is all of the members of the public who have signed up to speak. The chair is going to go back through those folks who signed up but who were not present when I called their names out. So starting back from the beginning of the list, Lamisha Whittington. Is Lamisha Whittington here in the auditorium? Miko McCarthy at Central Piedmont Community College. Miko McCarthy. Sherry Pickett. Is Sherry Pickett here in the auditorium? Jonathan Riley. Is Jonathan Riley here in the auditorium? Darius Hanton at Central Piedmont Community College. Darius Hanton. Jim Womack here in the auditorium. Is Jim Womack in the auditorium? Rebecca Powers, East Carolina University. Rebecca Powers. Gwendolyn Robinson Green at East Carolina. Gwendolyn Robinson Green. Mate Sands, Central Piedmont Community College. Mate Sands. Cien Jasmine, East Carolina. Cien Jasmine. Mari Curry, East Carolina. Mari Curry. Members, we have exhausted the committee's list, and there being no further business before the committee is now adjourned.